it. We're gonna make our dreams come true.
As they say, all good things must end. And so it is that we wave goodbye to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the wonderful Knapp Street years of Laverne Shirley. Welcome back to Night After Night, the podcast about 8 seasons in a row. We have finally reached the turning point. It's time to head west for Hollywood. Spurred by Season 5's unfortunate drop in the ratings, the series practically soft rebooted, with the cast of characters going to California for celebrity cameos, more playful hijinks, and a time jump to push things into the swinging 60s. This was intended as a way of saving the show by changing the tone, the style, and adding the bubbly personality of Rhonda, along with the cocky, studly man of action, Sonny. Unfortunately, the result is another rough season for me, and despite some highlights that I'll go into here, I found Season 6 to be very inconsistent. It takes so long to reboot its concept, and there's so many new faces behind the camera, both in the writing room and the director's chair, that it never really gels. Yet, I cannot deny that its best moments are some of the finest episodes of the series canon. The honorable mentions today are what would have been my 4 and 5 slots this time around, and are emblematic of the stronger episodes. I'd also throw in Studio City, The Other Woman, and Child's Play into the mix for ones worth checking out. Firstly, I Do is insane for multiple reasons. It understandably lost them 2 sponsors from the drug-fueled comedy and other implications, without a shred of judgment against the girls for just wanting to have a good time and experiment with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Eric Idle and Peter Noon are great here, and the fact that Idle to this day keeps saying that he almost married Laverne, especially on his Twitter page, is truly adorable. Give it a look, especially if you can find the uncut version with the actual needle drops. The second honorable mention, Out Dan Plout, is so close to making the list. I love the Sergeant Plout character, and I'm bummed that she didn't get to be in more episodes, because Vicki Lawrence makes herself right at home in this cast of comedians. And in this episode, she gets to develop Plout's personality as a working woman with needs, and has a glorious music number. Damn good stuff, that Plout. Alright, with that roundup out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty of my bite-sized top 3 of Season 6 and see what gems I can find in the rough.
That's Laverne, she's warming up, she's gonna sing tonight.
She's gonna sing tonight?
Yeah.
In public?
Oh, yeah.
Does the public know about this?
No, we just didn't have the heart to tell her not to. That would be too cruel.
Sure.
Too cruel? Don't you think it's too cruel to have her sing in front of people who are eating? Well, cat got your tongue, huh, boys? Well, I'll tell you, I ain't worried about being too cruel. I'm an agent. Being cruel is my bread and butter.
Be gentle, Squiggles.
While the Shots Talent Show episodes are also left behind in Milwaukee, Laverne Shirley finds a way to put on big musical numbers in both seasons 6 and 7. Though I might prefer that's entertainment on the whole, Sing 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 is basically a Laverne shipper's goldmine. It's ostensibly about Laverne's attempts at becoming a folk singer while also helping Lenny win the waitress of his dreams, but the result ends up feeling like yet another why wasn't this the endgame, pull the trigger you dolts episode. It uses the history of these characters brilliantly, while also not forgetting to give standout moments to all the rest of the cast. We're also treated to 3 fantastic music numbers this go around, with the Cindy and Eddie duet that is beautifully poignant, the near riotous performance from Betty rocking a ukulele and Leslie letting loose on a trumpet, then finally the absolute bring the house down novelty number from Penny and Michael. And yes, as well, I also love the finale of Shirley losing her voice, so Carmine is assisted by Squiggy, and then Squiggy assisted by Frank, in a joyous little punctuation to the episode. Between this and the wonderful character notes throughout, I'm still shocked that this was Cindy Williams' only outing as director. My understanding is that she'd become a tad overwhelmed and gotten behind schedule due to the focus on the minutiae, but it reminds me that she was someone who had something truly special, given her intelligence and focus as a performer, and in this case, as a director. She clearly had something here, and I would have loved to have seen more of it, especially on this show. The episode, however, is held back by a few factors. Firstly, the absence of Sabrina Bush being given anything other than a few medium shots and her having a complete total lack of character. And the fact that, despite a great climax, it doesn't feel like it emotionally resolves itself in the way that other Laverne and Lenny episodes do.
In Toho Scope.
What are we sitting here for?
But it's still one of the highlights of the season for me, and of the series as a whole.
Bachelor number 3, if you could invent a machine that would make me fall in love with you, what would it be?
A lawnmower.
No, number 3.
Another boys-centric episode directed by Penny Marshall that's absolutely great? No, it couldn't be. But it is. And this one is easily my favorite. Having actually filmed behind the scenes on a dating game parody set, I was tickled pink by getting to see them use Jim himself in another recreation of such an iconic television location. But even with the hype that Lisa and our friends of the pod had filled in me, it still exceeded my expectations.
No, they're bleeping him. I know what he does with honey.
This is a powder keg of comedy from the first frame of film, with a high joke per minute count, physical moments punctuating the boys' zaniness, and culminating in some of the best material the show has to offer.
Well, all of us was just molded into one heaving mound of flesh.
Season 6 may have faltered for me, but this is a contender for best episode of the entire show. A big strength in Penny as a director is making oddballs and misfits into real people, reflecting her own sense of goofball, creativity, and sense of humor in the characters that she helps the writers and actors bring to life. This aspect is already great in Duke of Squigman and Squiggy in Love, but Dating Game does it with less pathos while sacrificing none of the heart of it. In some ways, I call this one a celebration of the bizarre, irreverent, sometimes perverse nature of these two characters, by just saying it's people. I mean, they're different, sure, but they're still people. Lenny and Squiggy are, to be a bit more contemporary, bros. A prototype not just for the Bulk and Skull and Beavis and Butthead comparisons I've made in the past, but for the Seth and Evan in Superbad, or Nick and Danny in Hot Fuzz. They are ride together, die together bad boys for life, Shrimphead and Numbnuts, and a whole bunch of other comparisons. As said before, they understand each other, even if others don't. And no moment in the episode exemplifies this more than the conclusion's rapturous,
We're going to France!
but if there's one thing better than a Lenny and Squiggy episode about a game show, it's, well... I don't know what it says about me that the majority of my favorite parts of Season 6 were about Lenny and Squiggy rather than Lavoine and Shoyle. But nevertheless, I cannot deny that the reference-laden episode Born Too Late became my favorite of the season extremely quickly.
Except they didn't talk. Nobody, not a word. All they did was they just flushed the words up on the screen.
Yeah, so even deaf people could hear it. And it was all filmed in colorful black and white, too.
You guys have never seen a silent movie?
The very idea that Lenny and Squiggy would fall head over heels in love with silent cinema and its idyllic tales, be they comedy or tragedy, speaks to my heart on a personal level. While my lovely lady Lisa is much more a connoisseur of the pre-talkie era, and I have seen a drastically small number of silent films, the ones that I have seen are all treasures, and to see how faithfully the show recreates the overcranking, the sound and music, the broad gestures, even down to the subtle lighting touches and pitch-perfect costumes, shows the amazing care in this episode. In a year that felt so enamored with using intensity, tempo, and big theatrics to win back the audience, it lands here in this episode to me best of all, because of the attention to detail and nuance that feels so sorely missing through much of Season 6. Each scenario is a play on the tropes of yesteryear, from the western to the weepy to the musical to the horror flick to the war picture, and with every single one giving glorious moments to all cast members involved. And while it's without the signature studio audience laugh track, I could just imagine the delight it was for people witnessing this come together. I have to wonder how much of this comes not only from Michael and David, but also credited writer Roger Garrett and director Alan Meyerson. Now, on that note, Meyerson himself was also responsible for some of my favorite episodes from Seasons 1 and 2, including High Neighbor and Haunted House. So it honestly isn't too big of a surprise how much he brings to this episode, with the fantastic use of close-ups, the extended coverage in some scenes, and the whip-smart comedic timing at every turn. This is the verve, energy, and above all, art that was missing through so much of the year for me. In the end, while the boys may have been born too late to be the stars of Hollywood, this episode came at exactly the point I needed in this tumultuous season. All in all, Season 6 was a strange, disorienting shift for me. The move to California breaks the show in ways that Season 7 barely recovers in my eyes, but there are great episodes that come because of it. But while I came to this year excited to see what was coming for us on the podcast, I left feeling more than a little bit disillusioned and wanting for it to end entirely. As I've discussed in semi-private fashion, I have my time limit for attention to anything, including the things I love most. This was, without a doubt, hitting the wall for me. With the loss of writers Chris Thompson, David W. Duclone, Deborah Leschen, Paula A. Roth, and Judy Pioli, all of whom were developing or working on other projects by this point, it was an even harder hit than I expected. Turbovic becomes the director after this point, and though he improves, especially in season 8 ironically, he's not quite the level of creativity and heart that we get out of Rafkin and Zwick in previous years. The effect of all these upheavals, plus losing Ed Marinaro suddenly mid-season, means the cast and crew had a lot of struggles to contend with. But who knows? When we get to our coverage of season 7, maybe it'll all balance out. In any case, that about covers this 6th season of Laverne and Shirley from us at Night After Night. What did you think of our choices? Do you agree? Disagree? Let us know in the comments below, and maybe we'll see you about town. We'll do lunch. Take care out there. Thanks.